Welcome, Dan. We're here to do the cosplayer of the month, and I've selected you to be the January recipient for all your work and improvement that you've done over the previous year, and culminating with PT Lil. The first question of order is, where are you based, and what first brought you to playing Fab?
Yeah, hi. So I'm over in London, in the United Kingdom, and I first got into Fab through friends that I used to play Legend of the Five Rings living card game with. So that game got canned, and we kept our little chat group together for the London players. And then it was the height of the pandemic, and I was kind of dipping in and out of their chat. But one day I heard one of them talk about Flesh and Blood, and I was like, "Oh, what's that?" And they said, "Oh, it's a new collectible card game. It's quite good. You should come and check it out." So I went over to Rule Zero, which at the time was the only game shop in town where you could play it, and my old friends introduced me to it, and that was that.
Oh, nice, nice. Um, just out of curiosity, what was your first hero you ended up playing?
Yeah, so I started playing just after Monarch First came out. So my first event was a Monarch First Edition Limited. But my first ever booster of Fab that I opened, I bought a box of Welcome to and a box of Arcane Rising and a box of Crucible. And I opened my first pack, which was Welcome to Wraith, and it had a rainbow foil Mass Momentum, and I was like, oh, I was on the chat with my friends. I was like, oh, is this good? And they said, yeah, it's basically one of the best cards in the set, and it's essential for Ninja. And so I looked at Katsu and I thought, oh, that sounds neat. I've already got the hardest to get item pretty much for his build, and I went with Katsu and I played that for most of my first year to year and a half of the game. So first nationals in the UK, road to nationals, some pro quests. I was running Katsu.
Oh, you'll be really excited that we've got another Katsu coming up in this set then.
Oh, excellent.
So what was your first cosplay? It doesn't have to be in Flesh and Blood, or was Flesh and Blood your first cosplay?
It was indeed. So, Fayndan Spring Tunic, as it's become to known, is my first ever cosplay. I never really thought I'd get into cosplay. Like, being like a weeb and a geek for a long time, I've always been very aware of it, but never thought of it as something I was going to do myself. And I think it was at like in a hotel after UK Nationals or Road to Nationals. Actually, it must have been something in the summer before UK Nationals, because I wore the costume to UK Nationals. So let's just say it was a road to nationals in the summer in the hotel afterwards with my mates, and we
Mm.
were just talking about spring tunic, and my friend had just won, I think, the mat from a road to nationals. We were in the pub, and I was like, "Oh, it's such nice art," and we got drunk, and then I was like, "I'm gonna make it." And they were like, "What?" And I was like, "I'm gonna make the costume." And that was kind of that.
Nice, nice. Yeah, and it's been coming in great strides. Each time we see it, it just seems even more improved. It just looks
Thank you.
great.
What's not improved is the wigs. I need to sort out my wigs. They've got really badly tangled up.
Wigs are always very hard to get. Even if you got a good quality wig, if it's long, it's really hard to look after.
Yeah, and cause like I play when I'm in cosplay, so I'll do like whatever event there is, and I often wear the costume all day, maybe the whole weekend, and so like you have these high back chairs, and you got like I bought fairly cheap wigs because I'm just a beginner, and so you got this long hair in like acrylic rubbing against the back of a chair, and it just gets really knotted up.
Yeah, yeah. I find the same with my young Lexi, so yeah, I do feel that pain. What's been your favourite cosplay that you've seen in Fab?
So, well, I thought about this for a while because there's lots of great entries, but I actually wanted to mention one that just made me laugh and I thought was amazing, really creative. I can't remember which event it was, but do you remember the guy who did? He actually went as the card of Art of War.
Oh, yes,
Um,
I think I saw that one. I think that may have been Worlds. I'm not sure. But yeah.
yeah, it was autumn time roughly, but I thought like normally when we cosplay, we're playing the character
Yeah.
and we're kind of dressed ourselves. And this guy actually went as the actual card, which I loved. I loved the humor of that. I think he got like the ancient Olympian kind of Zeus like vibe down, and I love that he used little gummy bears as the tiny little people.
It was quite well done. It's very interesting what people's different takes are, and that's what cosplay is all about. Um,
Yeah, and it was just different, and I loved him for it.
yeah. What challenges did you have while making cosplay?
So as I said, like I'm at the beginning of my journey with this, and one of the biggest challenges I had with Spring Tunic was how am I going to do this? I can't sew. I don't consider myself over my life to have been very good at art and drawing. Not crafting didn't come to me naturally. Like picked it up over time. So my biggest challenge was thinking about okay, so this is actually quite a high technical piece of costume. Like the chest emblazoning was the bit I got most stressed about. So my biggest challenge was like, how can I actually make this with the skills I currently have, and in a few months because I wanted to work to UK nationals. So I took down the route of essentially like Fayndan Spring Tunic I see as like decorating, and I did everything with hot glue. I remembered what they were saying on RuPaul Drag Race, like make gosh you can do stuff with hot glue, and I see it as what I did before as decorating. So I managed to find a dress that was roughly the right kind of color and style. I'm 6 foot and a bit overweight, so finding like a women's dress in my size in an Indian style wasn't particularly easy, but we got there. And then it was really good fun to like over the course of a couple of months. Like I spent about 2 months finding all the right things, like finding the dress, finding the right paint, I had like a sari sort of thing, for like she has like a train or like a see-through thing at the back, and then it took about a week of actual assembly. But yeah, my biggest challenge was how do I actually do this with the skills I have?
Yeah, yeah. Um, so we'll come back to that question after the community question. So we've got a community question. This one came from the Fab Discord, which the cosplay one, which anyone can join that's interested in cosplay, and I do encourage it. They asked what's would be the best for a beginner or someone who has never done any sort of cosplay before. So you're kind of still on that kind of road, eh? So
Yeah. So for Christmas I got a sewing machine. So because I want to get away from the glue gun for a bit and start to learn how to sew. So before this stream, I was actually just went to the material shop. Before about over Christmas, I bought some cheap calico, which is like untreated cotton. Just for any listeners who don't know what that is, it's quite cheap, just to practice using the machine on. And I'm actually going to use I've bought some proper fabric, some printed fabric. I'm going to try and make a laptop case. So at the moment, I'm learning how to use a machine.
oh, nice.
But yeah, to go back to the question. So I think for a beginner, someone hasn't done anything, do something you really want to do. Like I think because you'll find it hard at times potentially, and be honest with yourself about what you'll be able to do. So as I said, I didn't really come from a very strong artistic or crafty background when I started doing this, and I thought, well, I can use the hot gun, I can use the glue gun, I can just about use fabric paint in like a bottle squeezy kind of bottle that you just sort of paint over the top. And I actually found it quite fun to think, how can I do this with the skills? So it was a challenge, but it was like a problem to solve, rather than like, oh, this is impossible, I'm useless. It was like, oh, so how can I do this with a hot glue gun? How can I do this without actually cutting any fabric? How can I do this without a sewing machine? And so there are lots of ways you can do things. So I would say be creative, be realistic, and do something you really want to do, because that if you start to struggle, the fact you really want to do that particular costume will pull you through.
Yeah, it is always a bit of a struggle to keep on going sometimes. And yeah, the passion is what really pulls it for you. I find too.
Yeah, and I was so happy with how the UK community reacted when I first wore it. So I wore this spring tunic first of all to the UK Nationals, and as I said, I spent about a week, best part of a week, in my evenings and weekend putting it together, and I finished. And it was this great feeling that I'd finished, and it was the day before going to Nationals. It finished. I was
Yeah.
good on time, and then I had a huge panic. I was like, "Oh my god, this is going to be terrible. What are people going to think? It's a gender swap cosplay. I don't know how people are going to feel about that. Oh my god, oh my god." And I almost didn't wear it. I almost bailed and threw the whole thing away, you know.
Oh.
And I was, in the end, I was like, no, I don't care what people say. If they're going to be mean, I'll just do it. And it was great. I had a great reception, and that really encourages you to then think about the next thing.
Yeah, I really actually kind of sympathise with you on that one, because my first event that I went to, there wasn't very many cosplayers here as well, so I do get that feeling of like, if I turn up in cosplay, are people going to take me seriously when no one else is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the gender swap element, I'm basically a man in a dress. I've been playing for about 4, 5, 6 months, maybe at the time, and I sort of had some friends. I had people I'd known for a long time from other games, like I said, but the majority of the community, I didn't really know what they're going to think.
Yeah. Well, we're so glad you did it, because it's a wonderful costume. We really appreciate it. So
thank you.
I think you've kind of already covered this, but what is your process of thinking about creating a cosplay, and what is your goal when creating the cosplay? And that's Issa, and I think that was on Twitter. I think they asked that question.
Yeah, it was Issa, right?
Yeah, Issa.
Won at Pro Tour Lille with the great Benji costume they
did.
Yeah. So hi Issa, thanks for the question. So what's my process? So, I've talked about that a bit already. I think, well, how can I actually make this a reality, right? Making fantasy costumes isn't very easy, because we're trying to turn a drawing into a 3D object that will stay together while we're moving around, and the artist doesn't have to worry about that when they're drawing it. So I quite like to think, okay, so what's my base? I think the costume has to have a base, whether that is something you've made, something you're adapting, or like me, just something you got off the shelf. And so I think, what's my base? What techniques can I use? And what stages do I need? What's the components and stages of how I'm going to put this together? So I see it like a bit of a problem to solve. I think as I'm hoping to upskill myself over the next year, so I've been learning to use a sewing machine. I saw I've forgotten the lady's name, but the fantastic Dromai adult that was I think at one of the Pro Tours.
That was beautiful, yeah.
Yeah, and she said something that really meant a lot to me. She said she tries to learn a new technique with every costume, and she used some kind of Canadian stitchy, foldy thing to do the scaling on Dromai's armor. And I really like that sentiment. Try and learn something new with every piece. So, and the more skills you get, the more tools you have, and the easier it will be to solve the puzzle. So in some ways, I've done the hardest thing I'm ever going to do, which is my first costume.
Yeah. And this is a little bit of a fun one. Maria Fayndan, I think she was with you at Lille on the cosplay Facebook page. She's asked the question, where did you get the mana candy you gave us at Lille?
So, hi Maria. So she did the really great Ira up in Lille. She was a lot of fun. Her and Miss Chalice were great. We had a lot of fun. So to answer your question, they are actually gumballs. So they're just called Z Candy Gumballs, bubble gumballs. And I wanted to get the right colour. So backtrack a bit. One thing I've decided I want to make my thing is to try and have an additional element to the costume to make that make sense from the card that I'm representing.
Yeah.
So at the time, Spring Tunic, a very iconic piece of art, very iconic card. It still get used a lot, but wind back a year, like it was in most competitive decks, and if you weren't putting it in, sometimes you had to think, what's my reason for not using it? And the thing that it's most famous for is people, like the one resource it will give you every 3 turns, and the fact that people forget that a lot and stuff. So I was like, well, I want to have an additional element. What can I do that's fun? And I thought, well, Spring Tunic gives people resources, so I'm going to give people resources.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
Yeah, so then I was like, well, how am I going to do that? Well, I thought it'd be nice if it's something people could eat or use. And then I was just looking online on Amazon, and I knew I wanted something spherical, roughly the right color as the red art blob on the cards. And I found these gumballs, and there's 2 flavors you can get that are roughly the right color. One of them's cinnamon and one of them's cherry. Other flavors are the wrong color.
Yeah.
So I just decided, I bought like a little sort of little kind of fantasy-ish kind of little drawstring bag, and I just filled it up and I gave people their free resource if they wanted it.
So our final question to leave everything off, what are you looking forward to in Fab?
What am I looking forward to? So I'm looking forward to... I want to say I can't put the time in to be a really top tier player, but I do want to see progression for myself. So I'd like to make a top 8. That'd be something I'd like to do this year. So that's a personal what am I looking forward to. In terms of what I'm looking forward to in terms of the game, I'm really looking forward to there being another adult ninja that I want to play. So Outsiders, we know that we've got, I forget her name, but there is the
Azuri, yeah.
Yeah, and we know she's from Mysteria, from her young version.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to there being another ninja adult. I know we've got Fi, but I want to see more about Mysteria.
Yeah, we've got Katsu returning, but Benji's still young, so that's a big question mark.
Yeah, I think Benji never made it to be an adult. I joke about that with people at events.
It's quite possible, because it's a hard place, that Wraith.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Dan. Is there any socials you'd like people to follow you on, or anything that you'd like to pop in here?
Not really. I use Facebook, but I leave that as friends. I don't use Twitter. I do have a Twitch channel that I'm currently not really using, but I've not quit. That's Scrappy Kid on Twitch. But otherwise, I just really want to encourage people to join the Facebook group for cosplay and the Discord for cosplay that you've set up in there. I just want to say thank you to you, because you do so much to promote that side of the game and the community. And yeah, I'm great. I'm really proud to be a part of that.
Yes, and thank you for accepting being the European moderator. I know that it was a bit of a shock for me to ask you, but I just wanted to ask someone who was at least in the right place to do that for us.
It's not been a lot of work so far. People behave themselves quite well.
Yeah. So thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing what happens in the new year for us all.